am Grill Master Damon Holter.
And I am Lu Barbecue Holter.
And we are the Croix Valley Sauces Competition Barbecue Team.
Also an Icon Grills Pro Team.
Today we want to show you how we make competition-style pork shoulder.
The first step in making really good pork shoulder that people don't often think about is pork selection.
That's right. If you think about when you're choosing a steak, you're looking for particular marbling, selection, quality, but why aren't you doing the same thing with pork?
You're not, but you should be.
That's right. So what we're going to be using today is a heritage breed of pork. This is Duroc pork that comes from Compart Family Farms in southern Minnesota. There's a big difference between this quality cut of meat and the average pork shoulder you're going to find at the grocery store.
We're going to show you some of those differences.
So to see the difference, we've got our premium Compart pork shoulder right here and a pork shoulder that we picked up at the grocery store.
Let's take a look at the Duroc pork. It's got some nice pink-red color. It's got deep marbling going all through the shoulder, as opposed to the commodity pork from the grocery store. There's a reason they called this the other white meat. It looks white, pale, not as much marbling as the Duroc, and that's why this is not going to be as flavorful as the Duroc.
That's right. If you start with a premium cut of meat to begin with, you're going to get a premium result in the end. So let's get to cooking.
Yeah, I'm getting hungry. The next thing we're going to do is trim the meat.
That's right. When you start with a really good quality piece of meat to begin with, there's just a lot less work up front.
That's right. But one thing we want to show you is how we trim out the money muscle, so we can get some really cool slices at the end that the judges are just going to love.
Yeah, now the money muscle is going to be opposite the blade bone here, and it's this muscle right here that's got some really deep, intense marbling, and you can identify it by those horizontal stripes of fat throughout.
Okay, so let's dig into this money muscle. But rather than using a knife and risking cutting it, it's very easy to separate this with your fingers and your hands just by reaching in there and pulling the fat away. Now that we've got it separated out, we're just going to get some of that fat out of there and clean it up. So there is the money muscle, all isolated out. That way we can rub all sides of it. So at the end, the judges are going to get a really flavorful bite of meat.
So the next step is to inject the pork shoulder. And quite honestly, with a really flavorful cut of meat like Duroc, you don't need to be injecting if you're making this in your own home.
But for the competition circuit, we want that wow factor in every bite. We're going to take advantage of everything we can possibly do to get it. We made a really basic pork injection. You can find the recipe for it on our website.
Yeah, and there's really no rhyme or reason to how to inject the meat. You just want to make sure that that solution gets all throughout the meat, so at the end, that wow factor really truly is in every piece of meat that we pull.
So now that we're done injecting, we are going to give this pork shoulder a generous coating of rub.
That's right. That's why we are using the Croix Valley All Meat Barbecue Dry Rub here. The goal is really to just give a really heavy coat of this rub to every piece of exposed meat. What this is going to do is it's going to create a really nice flavorful bark as it caramelizes under the heat of the smoker. I think that looks good.
So pretty.
All right, there is only one last thing to do, and that's to cook it. So today we are using our Icon Grill's 800 Series Kamado grill. We started our grill with lump hardwood charcoal, mixed in some hickory and applewood, and now we're hovering at about 300 degrees, which is a little bit more hot and fast cooking. This will take us about 4 to 4.5 hours for this pork shoulder to get done, as opposed to your traditional low and slow at about 225, which may take up to 8 hours.
We're going to leave this on for a couple hours and come back and check it out.
Sounds good. So we are about halfway through the cooking process right now, and we're going to remove the pork from the grill to do two things. First off, we're going to remove that money muscle, and then we're going to go ahead and put the pork in a foil wrap, return it to the grill to be able to speed up that cooking process.
Now the money muscle can really vary in size, and no matter if it's a smaller money muscle, a larger money muscle, it is really worth the effort for that money muscle to really get that flavor in there.
And we're going to go ahead and put this in a nice warm spot.
When this pork reaches a nice mahogany color, which we have here, that is our cue to wrap it up.
Now we're wrapping this not only to really speed it through the entire cooking process, but also to maintain moisture. We even go as far as to add a little bit of extra moisture, like about a cup of apple juice, and what that's going to do is make us some extremely tender meat. So we've got about 2 more hours on this cook until that pork is ready to turn into judges. And I'll tell you what, I'm getting extremely hungry.
It smells really good out here.
It really does.
All right, it's been about 4.5 hours, and we know it's time to pull that pork out because it's hit an internal temperature of about 200 to 205 degrees.
One of the other ways that we know that it's done is by taking a look at the actual blade bone here. So you know the pork is done when that blade bone pulls away from the meat like this. Now I'll tell you what, this is an extremely tender and juicy piece of meat. Now we're gonna let this rest for about 20 minutes.
20 minutes?
20 minutes to ensure that the juices recombine with the meat, and also to ensure that we don't burn our hands when we're pulling it and putting it in our turn-in box.
But I'm hungry now.
You have to wait.
Oh.
So our meat has been resting, and what I'm doing now is separating these into different pieces of meat to present to the judges as if I were in a professional barbecue competition today.
When we're in a professional barbecue competition, we're required to turn our meat in a white clamshell, much like this. Garnish is always optional, but we always lay down something. We've got a bed of parsley on the bottom of our clamshell today.
Now the last step here is that we sauce all of our pork. Today we're using our Croix Valley private stock barbecue sauce. I'm giving the pork a nice coat of sauce, and then I'm gonna really kind of mix it in there a little bit so nothing seems too heavy.
All right, Damon, are you ready to make our turn-in box?
I am. We are gonna start with some shredded pork first. What I wanna do is I wanna make sure that I've got enough meat in this box to handle 6 hungry judges. I move on to chunks of pork.
And chunks of pork are really important because those have a lot of bark to them. That bark has a lot of flavor from the rub. That's going to really push our scores up. So it's really important to us to get those chunks in there.
Yeah, I want to make sure that there's a lot of really good flavor there for that one bite wow factor we were talking about earlier. The last thing I'm putting in here are our little slices of money muscle.
Now with 3 different presentations like this, the judges are required to try each one. They're not just picking and choosing which one they want to try. They have to try them all.
We have just a tiny little bit of cleanup to make sure that these look the way that we want them to look. We just do a few final touches, a little bit of rearranging to kind of fill in that box as much as we can. All right, so there you go. Competition style Duroc pork shoulder made on the Icon 800 series grill.
And while we're not facing actual competition today, we are facing some of our harshest judges, our children.
Yeah, they're the toughest critics of all. You want to give it a try?
I do.
It is so good, so tender. This is what barbecue is all about. I'll tell you what, we'll see you around the grill.